Okay, let's unpack this. I want you to close your eyes for a second. Imagine it's a Saturday, specifically today, January 31st, 2026. You're walking into the lobby of a massive corporate headquarters in a major city. Pick your poison. New York, San Francisco, London. The building is gleaming, lobby is polished marble, and the massive stock ticker in the corners is flashing bright green. The S&P is hitting record highs. The economy on paper is absolutely booming. But you get into the elevator, you go up to the trading floor or legal or the marketing department, and the doors open. The lights are on, the servers are humming. But it's quiet, like library quiet.
It's an eerie image, isn't it?
It is.
You expect the buzz of commerce, phones ringing, people rushing to meetings, but what you're describing is a vacuum?
Exactly. It's spooky. There are desks, hundreds of them, but half are empty. There's no chatter near the coffee machine. It feels like a ghost town, but the business is making more money than ever. So the question we are obsessing over today is, what is going on here?
Well, you've just described the central theme of the deep dive we are tackling today. We're looking at a stack of sources centered around a phenomenon that economists and sociologists are calling the Silent Purge.
The Silent Purge. That sounds less like an economic trend and more like a sci-fi horror movie title.
It does have a dystopian ring to it, but it's actually a very grounded, hard-nosed economic reality that has been building since roughly 2023. We're digging into a primary article titled The Silent Layoffs and the 2026 Ghost Economy, alongside some supporting data on labor statistics. And the mission today is to understand how the labor market has fundamentally shifted right under our noses.
Right, because I think when we hear layoffs, we're conditioned to think of the early 2020s. You know, the big loud headlines.
Oh, yeah.
Tech giant fires 10,000 people. Panic on Twitter. Well, ex-LinkedIn posts with the open to work banner everywhere. It was a spectacle.
A completely different mechanism. That was the shock and awe model of 2023. Companies realized that mass layoffs were traumatic, they tanked morale, and frankly, they were bad PR. What we're seeing in this 2026 landscape is a shift to a quieter, more systemic strategy. The source material calls it AI ghosting.
Okay, AI ghosting. Now, usually, ghosting is what happens when a bad date stops texting you back. Yeah. How are we applying this to the HR department?
It's actually a very similar psychological mechanism: avoidance and silence. Here's the workflow. In the past, if you, let's say, resign from your job as a mid-level financial analyst to go backpacking across Europe, the company would panic slightly. They'd post a job opening, interview candidates, and hire a human replacement to sit in your chair.
Standard procedure. Someone leaves, you backfill the role.
Right, but now you resign, the company accepts it, maybe throws you a little happy hour, you leave, and then nothing.
Nothing.
The role is not backfilled, the job requisition is never opened, it is left vacant. And subsequently, that workload is filled by what the text calls AI agent swarms.
Swarms. I have to say, I don't love the sound of that. It sounds insectoid. But let's get technical for a second, because I think a lot listeners hear AI, and they still picture a chatbot, you know, typing a prompt and getting a paragraph of text. We aren't talking about a chatbot doing a job, are we?
No, and that's a critical distinction to make. We aren't talking about a large language model just writing emails. The source describes agent swarms as decentralized networks of specialized AI tools that interact with each other.
Break that down. How does a swarm replace a financial analyst?
Okay, think about that analyst's job. It's not one thing, it's a bundle of tasks.
Right.
They pull data from a SQL database. They clean that data in Excel, they run a variance analysis, they visualize it in Tableau, and then they write a summary email.
Like, that's the workflow.
In a swarm architecture, you don't have one robot doing all that. You have one specialized agent that only does the SQL query. It passes the baton to a second agent that only formats the data. That agent passes it to a third that handles the visualization. They're modular, interconnected.
And they run 24/7 without coffee breaks.
Exactly.
So it's deconstructing the job into tasks and assigning each task to a piece of software.
Precisely. And the scary part, or the efficient part, depending on your view, is that because it's modular, it's incredibly resilient. If the Excel agent breaks, you just patch that one script. You don't have to retrain a human being. The office lights stay on, revenue flows. But as the source poetically puts it, the human heartbeat of the company is fading.
That is the spooky part I was talking about, is like the ship is sailing itself. But I guess for the company, looking at the bottom line, this is just Pure efficiency.
To the CFO, it's a dream state. You eliminate salary, benefits, office space, and the messiness of human HR issues. To the sociologist, however, it's a profound shift. We're moving from a model of employment, people having jobs, to a model of automated execution. And what's really fascinating here is that this isn't affecting everyone equally. There are very specific targets in this ghost economy.
Yeah, let's get into the who, because usually when we talk about automation, the cliche is blue-collar jobs, robots in factories, self-checkout kiosks. But this deep dive is pointing the finger somewhere else entirely.
It is. It's pointing directly at the middle, the white-collar quiet zone.
Middle management.
The middle management trap, as the article calls it.
Which is wild because growing up, that was the destination. You do your time in the trenches, you get promoted, you manage a team, you're set. That was safety.
It was the safety zone. But think about what a middle manager actually does, or used to do. The source uses this great metaphor. They were the bridge.
The bridge between the executives making the big strategic decisions and the workers actually doing the stuff.
Exactly. They coordinated, they tracked deadlines, they assigned tasks, they checked for quality. But in 2026, if the workers are increasingly these agent swarms we just talked about, or if the human workers are working entirely inside digital platforms, that bridge function is better served by an algorithm.
So we aren't being managed by people anymore.
Increasingly, no. The technology replacing them is referred to as agent managers.
Agent managers. Okay, paint me a picture. Is this a robot standing at the end of my desk?
No, it's much more subtle. It's essentially a sophisticated AI dashboard, a layer of software that sits on top of all the company's tools. It tracks performance in real time. It assigns tasks based on workflow capacity. And this is the kicker. It even writes the performance reviews.
Wait, hold on. So the software watches me work, decides if I get a good job based on metrics, and then writes a report that determines my bonus.
That is the reality described here. It turns management into a pure data science problem, and the statistics are devastating. The source highlights that in 2026, if a job consists of organizing people who work on computers, that job is 95% automated.
95%, that's basically extinction.
It's a complete obsolescence of a specific type of coordination. The human element of checking in on someone, asking how's it going, is viewed as inefficiency. If the work is digital, the oversight can be digital.
That is. Wow. I mean, on one hand, nobody likes a micromanager hovering over their desk asking for the TPS report. But on the other hand, losing that human mentorship, that buffer between you and the scary executives, that feels huge.
It is huge. It removes the nuance. An agent manager doesn't care if you had a bad morning because your car broke down. It cares about the output metrics and the time on task. It's clinical. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's not just the people in the middle who are in trouble. It's the people trying to get in the building in the first place.
The entry-level employees. The fresh grads. The Gen Z and Gen Alpha cohort.
Right, the entry-level wall. This is arguably the most structurally dangerous part of the 2026 ghost economy.
This part of the research really stressed me out, honestly, because we've always told kids, go to school, get the degree, get the entry-level job, work your way up. That's the deal.
And that social contract is breaking. The source specifically lists industries that used to be guaranteed paths to stability: law, accounting, and software engineering.
The big three. Those are the safe careers. If you were smart, you went to law school or learned to code.
They were safe because they relied on the apprenticeship model. Think about a law firm. You hire a bunch of junior associates. What do? They don't argue in the Supreme Court. They do document review. They read thousands of pages of contracts. They do the grunt work.
Right. They grind. And in doing the grind, they learn the trade.
Exactly. But look at the math presented in the article. It's a brutal calculation. If you have one senior partner, someone who really knows the strategy and the nuance, and you equip them with a high-powered, specialized AI agent trained on case law, that one person can now do the document review work of 10 juniors.
So the grunt work is gone. The document review, the basic coding, the spreadsheet crunching.
It's evaporated, and if the grunt work is gone, the economic incentive to hire a graduate vanishes. Why pay a salary, health benefits, and training costs for a junior who is slower, more error-prone, and more expensive than the software?
But, and I feel like I'm yelling at the clouds here, how do you become a senior if you never get to be a junior? You can't just birth a senior partner out of a pod.
You've hit the nail on the head. That is the critical question that companies are ignoring right now. This raises an important structural failure in the current pipeline. The source calls this group the lost generation. These are people with degrees, often expensive ones, who are standing outside the corporate fortress, but there is no entry-level door to walk through anymore.
That is terrifying. It's like pulling up the ladder. We're burning the seed corn, effectively.
We are eating our future talent supply to maximize current quarter efficiency. It's a short-term optimization with a massive long-term risk. Companies are just poaching existing seniors from each other, driving those salaries up while the juniors are locked out.
And speaking of paradoxes, let's zoom out a bit. Because at the top of the show, I mentioned the stock market is doing great, the companies are rich, but the people aren't getting hired.
This brings us to the macroeconomic concept the research identifies as the productivity paradox.
Okay, break this down for us, because usually productivity sounds like a good thing.
It is, usually. But traditionally, in an economic boom, employment goes up, companies make money, they expand, they hire more people to do the work. Labor and capital were linked.
Right. More money, more jobs. That's Econ 101.
That link has been severed. The source notes that companies are reporting record-breaking profits in 2026, but they are hiring 30% fewer people.
30% fewer. So they are growing, but they are doing it without us.
They are calling this phase a humanless expansion.
A humanless expansion. That is a chilling phrase. It sounds like something out of a Terminator prequel.
It defines the era. It's not a recession. GDP is up. But it doesn't feel like a boom to the average worker because the wealth isn't circulating through wages. And you see this disconnect most clearly when you compare Wall Street to Main Street.
Yeah, the article mentioned a ghost town effect in physical cities.
Yes. Think about those business districts we talked about in the intro. If you have 30% fewer workers coming into the city because those roles have been ghosted or automated, what happens to the sandwich shop downstairs?
They lose 30% of their customers instantly.
What happens to the dry cleaner, the happy hour bar, the gym?
They go under.
Exactly. So Wall Street loves the efficiency because margins are higher, they aren't paying salaries. But the local economy, the ecosystem of businesses that rely on human foot traffic, is collapsing. It's a ghost town in the physical world because of the ghosting in the digital world.
It's wild how connected it all is. You replace a middle manager with an algorithm, and suddenly a deli owner 3 blocks away goes out of business.
It is a ripple effect. We are seeing a transfer of wealth from labor wages to software licensing and cloud compute costs.
And we haven't even touched on the psychological toll on the people who do manage to keep their jobs. Because if I'm listening to this and I have a job, I might be thinking, okay, whew, I'm safe. I survived the purge.
Yeah.
But the source says it's not exactly a picnic for the survivors.
Far from it. The text describes a phenomenon called psychological warfare.
Warfare? That seems intense. Who are we fighting?
It's an internal war, a performance war against the machines.
So it's not just competing with Bob from accounting for a promotion anymore.
No. You are competing with the software update that's coming next quarter. The dynamic described is fascinating and tragic. Humans are working 12-hour days, not necessarily because the workload requires it, but to prove a point.
To prove they're useful.
Specifically, to prove they are more creative than the AI. They are trying to justify their continued employment by showcasing the one thing the AI supposedly can't do as well. Creativity, complex problem-solving, high-level strategy.
But doing that for 12 hours a day, trying to be a genius on command every single day? That's not sustainable.
It's not. Creativity is a finite resource. It needs rest. But the source cites that the burnout rate in 2026 has hit an all-time high.
I believe it. You're running a marathon at a sprint pace.
But here is the silent part again. No one is talking about it. It's a mental health crisis that is being suppressed because everyone is too afraid to look weak. If you say, I'm tired or I'm burned out, you might look less productive than the agent manager tracking you. You look like a biological liability.
Wow. So you just keep smiling, keep typing, and hope the algorithm doesn't flag you as low energy.
Exactly. It's a pressure cooker. The humanless expansion isn't just about fewer humans, it's about squeezing the remaining humans to perform like machines. It demands machine-like consistency from biological beings.
So let's just take a breath here, because we've covered a lot, and it's heavy. This isn't just tech news. This is a fundamental restructuring of how we live and work.
It is. It's comparable to the Industrial Revolution in terms of disruption.
Just to recap, we've identified the 4 pillars of this 2026 ghost economy. First, AI ghosting people leave, and swarms of agents take their place. No new hires.
Right. Attrition without replacement.
Second, the death of middle management. The bridge is burned, or rather, digitized, into agent managers. That shocking 95% automation rate for coordination roles.
Yes. The algorithm becomes the boss.
Third, the lost generation. The entry-level wall that's keeping the new graduates out, because the math of senior plus AI just works better for the bottom line.
Burning the seed corn.
And finally, the burnout of the survivors, the performance war in this humanless expansion.
A silent crisis of mental health.
So if I'm listening to this,
Yeah.
what do I do? I mean, whether I'm that senior person using the AI or the student staring at the wall, I can't just throw my hands up if this is the reality.
It is the reality, and ignorance is not a strategy. I think the key takeaway for you, the listener, depends on where you sit. If you are a senior, if you are a survivor, you have to leverage these tools. You cannot fight the swarm. You have to become the swarm commander.
Swarm commander. I like that better than being replaced.
Your value isn't doing the work anymore. It's orchestrating the agents that do the work. You shift from creation to curation. You become the architect, not the bricklayer.
And what if you're junior? What if you're staring at that locked front door?
You have to find a side door. The front door, the standard apply and wait, is a black hole. You have to demonstrate value that the AI swarm can't easily replicate yet.
Which is what?
Human connection,
Right.
physical world logistics, high-stakes negotiation where people need to look you in the eye, or distinct, weird creativity that is too out there for a corporate AI to replicate.
Be the anomaly.
Be the outlier. The AI is trained on the average. You have to be the thing it can't predict. It's a tall order, but it's the path forward.
Absolutely. You know, this whole humanless expansion concept,
Yeah.
it leaves me with one really big nagging question. And I want to leave you, the listener, with this thought to mull over as you go about your day.
Go.
We've talked about efficiency. We've talked about profit. But here's the thing. If the economy keeps growing without humans, if the companies keep making record profits by cutting out the workers, and if the entry-level bridge is burned so no one new gets a paycheck,
I see where you're going.
who is going to be left to buy the products these record-breaking companies are selling in 10 years?
That is the ultimate question. Henry Ford famously raised wages so his workers could afford his cars. He understood the loop. We seem to be breaking the loop. An economy needs consumers, and consumers need jobs.
Exactly. The lights are on, the servers are humming, but the economy needs a heartbeat to survive. Something to think about next time you walk into a quiet office. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Take care, everyone. Stay human.